For this week's report, summer safety tips from Exeter PD, the man behind Blue Hawk Media, an update on the Park Street Bridge and Pairpoint Park, the Great Cocktail Challenge returns to Exeter, and Exeter TV staff attend an annual conference for community media. For Exeter TV, I'm Dan Monchek, and this is the Exeter Biweekly Report. Let's get started. Good afternoon, Exeter. Thanks for tuning into the show today. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and like this video to help spread word about the show and all things Exeter. For our first segment, we met up with Detective Bruce Page and Officer West to talk about pedestrian and bicycle safety tips in downtown Exeter.
Hi everybody, I'm Detective Page with the Exeter Police Department. With the warmer weather coming up, we wanted to talk to people about being safe. We came up with some ideas on how to keep people safe downtown. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is bike safety, skateboard safety, scooter safety downtown. When you're downtown on the sidewalk, you should really be walking your bike. There's signs up down here. You're not supposed to be riding a scooter or a bike or a skateboard downtown. We've had pedestrians actually struck. So if you have a bike downtown, you should walk it rather than ride it through the downtown. The other thing I wanted to talk about is if you're on a bicycle, there's actually a law that you can't ride your bike across a crosswalk. We've had people struck riding their bike across a crosswalk. Cars don't see them coming. So please follow the law, walk your bike across a crosswalk. Speaking of bike safety, we have a bunch of helmets left over from our bike rodeo that we had this year in May. If somebody needs a bike helmet, you can call me, Detective Page at the Exeter Police Department, or email me at bpage@exeternh.gov. It is the law that you're supposed to be wearing a bike helmet if you're under the age of 16. We're also, Kiwanis is going to be giving away a bunch of bike helmets at National Night Out this year. It's going to be August 5th across from the PD from 4 to 7 p.m. So in the summertime, downtown Exeter, there's definitely a big increase in foot traffic. You can cross the road at any time if there's no cars coming, as long as you're not impeding traffic. That's what jaywalking is, when you're impeding traffic crossing the road. We'd definitely rather have you use a crosswalk. There's a bunch of them down here. You're probably safer in the crosswalk. Cars are looking out for you that way. So use a crosswalk if you can. Otherwise, if you're going to cross the road, make sure no cars are coming. So another thing about bicycle safety is bicycles are supposed to obey all the traffic laws, just like a car. If there's a stop sign, you're supposed to stop at the stop sign on the bicycle. Also, you ride with traffic, and if you're walking as a pedestrian, you walk against traffic. Again, in the summer months, with an increase of people out and about, we see a lot of electric bikes and scooters around, but some of the bikes are going really fast through the downtown area. Lieutenant West is going to explain a little bit about electric bikes laws.
It is important to note that a bike that is equipped with an electric motor that exceeds 750 watts or 1 horsepower and is capable of powered speeds over 20 miles an hour is categorized as an out-of-class electric vehicle or a Class 3 e-bike. It thereby falls under the same regulations as an off-highway recreational vehicle, or OHRV for short. This means they are not to be used on roads, rail trails, or mountain bike paths. They're only allowed in parks and on private lands where motorized OHRVs are authorized. You must be 16 years or older to operate a Class 3 e-bike. If the e-bike does not have pedals, it is considered an out-of-class electric vehicle. Helmets are required for operators under the age of 18. When purchasing an e-bike for your child, please pay attention to its rating as it will be stamped on the bike. Class 3 e-bikes need to have OHRV registrations. Now back to Detective Page.
The last thing I want to talk about today is railroad safety. We're asking people not to trespass and not to walk on the railroad tracks in the town of Exeter. It is illegal to walk on the railroad tracks or on railroad property. That's the last thing we wanted to talk about today. We want everybody to stay safe this summer. Thank you.
Did you know that Exeter has not one, but 3 community TV channels? The town operates Government Channel 22 and Public Access on Channel 6, but a 3rd channel is operated by the school district. In our next segment, we meet the man behind Blue Hawk Media.
Whether it's a school board meeting or a Blue Hawks varsity football game, residents in the 6 SAU 16 towns can always count on Blue Hawk Media, Channel 8, to capture the important moments. Set up along the town of Exeter's government and public access channels, Blue Hawk Media is operated by the school district and covers board meetings, school sports, and other extracurricular activities. Keeping the channel full of content is not a large team, but one man.
So my name is Eric Chellis. I am in charge of Blue Hawk Media for Exeter High School, which takes care of all the school board meetings as well as the sports teams for the high school.
Covering the SAU is not an easy task. With board meetings in 6 different towns, sporting events scattered throughout the calendar, and other school events happening, Eric works hard to make sure everything is covered.
You know, in any given week, I might have 3 school board meetings that I have to go and set up for. During any given season, I could have a lacrosse game, a football game, a soccer game. You know, there's been times I've gone from a soccer game to a football game, right back to back. So it gets kind of crazy. You know, my schedule, you know, there's a lot of downtime, but once you're going, it's hectic. It's just go, go, go. So, and it's just me.
Being a one-man show, Eric has to learn how to leverage technology and workflows to make the impossible possible. He's brought in multi-camera coverage of sports games and even partnered with other local TV stations through his membership in the New Hampshire Coalition for Community Media, or NHCCM, to broaden coverage of high school sports.
I've got great partnerships with Bedford, Nashua, Merrimack. We share games a lot. So if they've got a game going live, you know, if Exeter's playing Merrimack, you know, over there they might be covering it live, they'll send us the video feed. And that allows us for more coverage, to give more coverage and live games for the parents to watch and see.
All of this comes to the forefront during the fall sports season.
But yeah, Adams has been a weapon all year long, and I'm sure he'll continue to be a weapon today. Yeah, if these kickoffs...
I live for the football games. Being a one-man show, there's a lot to juggle and a lot that has to go right. But you've got 3 play-by-play announcers to calling the game, so you've got that energy to feed off of. You've got the energy of the crowd. There's tons of people that come see those games. And just the stress and anxiety of putting together a story and a production at that magnitude with everything that's there.
Trap. The give. He's in. Batstone's in. Touchdown. Huge stride.
Covering a football game, it's different every time. You don't know what's going to happen. There's no routine to it at all. So fall is I live for the fall. And that's my favorite time of the year.
Aside from the sports coverage, Eric's work filming school board meetings has increased government transparency and allowed the school district to get out its message, as new superintendent Christopher Andriski explains.
In any job that you take, the higher you go up, the biggest thing you always hear is communication could be better. But what is really communication? Is it written? Is it verbal? Is it a multitude of different ways? And especially with social media, the way that it's at. So being able to get it out, and then sometimes meetings don't always go great. So you're able to go back and look at what might have been a reason why that meeting didn't go right, or we had some difficulties, so that you can prepare for that for the next time you're in front of a similar crowd or a crowd that's asking you questions.
Being an education channel, in the end, everything comes down to the students and their families. Whether you have kids in the school system or they're your neighbors, it's all one big community.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, a great example is the baseball win this weekend that we just had. I'm not covering it for just Blue Hawk Media. I'm covering it for the parents, the grandparents, even the public that might not have kids here. They might have a vested interest. They might have had, a grandson go through here, or they went here years and years ago and they still love to follow the sports. So yeah, there's a lot of that I sit and think through, because it's like, okay, well, I got to cover the game. Like, for instance, with the baseball, I've got to cover the game. I've got to cover, the post game, handing out the awards, making sure I cover that. I rushed from the game to downtown to cover the parade that happened in town, to then rush back here to get the kids coming off the bus, to get a bunch of interviews of the kids, of some seniors. And that's all stuff that, the kids are going to look back at that and, they might think it's corny, but, in the moment they're like, I'm getting interviewed. This is important. This is cool. And to me, it's a great feeling. I love doing it. And I wish I could do more, but I'm a one-man person. I can't do everything.
The Select Board had a packed agenda for their June 30th meeting in the Novak Room. In our Meeting Minutes series, we recapped several action items, including an update on the Park Street Bridge and a presentation on Pairpoint Park designs.
This is your meeting minute for the Select Board's June 30th meeting in the Novak Room. For the first agenda item, Public Works Director Steve Cronin was back at the mic to update the board on the status of the closed Park Street Bridge. Shut down by the state in February due to structural deficiencies, the bridge has remained closed. Director Cronin was joined by Julia Avenant of New Hampshire DOT to give an update on where the state stands. Investigation done by the state revealed that the Park Street Bridge was not in fact owned by the state, but rather by railroad company CSX.
The bridge ownership in that MOU was meant to have been transferred from the railroad to the town, but we cannot find any documentation of that, and we've discussed that with Steve, and it doesn't sound like the town has that either. So the railroad did change ownership, as the previous speaker addressed. It was B&M, then it became Pan Am, then that was purchased by CSX in 2022. So if that transfer occurred, it could have been lost, but emails and correspondence we have with CSX, they acknowledge that they own this bridge.
A bit of a surprise to us as well. There was a town meeting action, I believe, back in 2001, where the town voted to execute the memorandum of understanding. The deed was never transferred, at least from what we can tell. So even though there was the intent on behalf of the town to take ownership of the bridge, somehow fell through the cracks. We, through our deed research, have not been able to locate that deed at the registry showing the town as owners. So again, even though the MOU states that there was an intent to transfer to the town, legally it doesn't appear that that has happened.
New Hampshire DOT went on to explain the status of the bridge as fracture critical.
This bridge is what's known as a non-redundant steel tension member structure, and that's more commonly known as fracture critical. And that just means that some of the supporting elements don't have any redundancy. If one of them fails, then the whole bridge is at risk of collapse.
Due to the type of bridge, representatives from New Hampshire DOT stated that the bridge is not a candidate for rehabilitation, and that CSX wishes to move forward with removing the bridge. New Hampshire DOT will conduct an environmental documentation and historic mitigation for the removal of the bridge. The process will take around 6 months, at which point CSX may be ready to move forward with the removal of the bridge in the spring or summer of 2026. Discussion then turned to the town water line which goes across the bridge, as it would need to be terminated if the bridge removal proceeds, as well as the discontinuation of the roadway, which can only be done through Exeter Town Meeting. The public also spoke about their concerns.
Or would you consider adding some sort of a study that would analyze the traffic impact of not having the bridge there anymore?
It is a historical part of Park Street, and I live on one side of Park Street. My joke is I live on the other side of the tracks. Took the bridge out, I'd really live on the other side of the tracks. And it's not just an inconvenience, it's just changing the character of the neighborhood.
I remember that we use that bridge a lot we go on these little fun walking field trips, and when we were younger, our legs got tired really easily, and it was a shortcut to get to the Main Street playground.
The board has tasked town staff to continue working with the state and CSX to investigate the ownership of the bridge and potential timelines and options for moving forward. Up next, 3 members of the Pairpoint Park Stakeholders Advisory Committee presented their findings from recent surveys alongside several proposals for moving forward. The committee had conducted 2 surveys, the most recent of which showed 3 design concepts and had 570 respondents in just under 2 weeks. The survey results had a clear winner in the Shady Bosque design.
So you'd enter the park kind of in the middle of the parcel, where there would be a low retaining wall, potentially with a entrance sign or something sort of identifying where you are in a sense of place, and perhaps a couple of benches. And then you're quickly brought to number 2 on the plan, which is the sloped walk.
To learn more about this process and the surveys, check out our previous meeting minute on the Pairpoint Park Advisory Committee's recent meetings. At the June 30th meeting, the committee had 4 asks for the Select Board.
First request is regarding the concept and theme. we would be seeking your approval of the Shady Bosque as the concept, as the vision for Pairpoint Park, along with the theme of local flora and fauna, history of the river, and environmental protection. These are in order of like kind of what we need to move forward.
After a brief discussion with questions related to potential dog access for the park and fundraising or budget timelines, the board then decided to authorize the committee to move forward with their items and work with the town manager's office to draft the CIP item for the budget. To watch the full discussion on these and other items from June 30th, you can watch the full meeting on Exeter TV from the Minutes and Agendas page of the town website, exeternh.gov/meetings. The board's next meeting will be on Monday, July 14th. See you there.
Thank you, everyone.
Summer is here, which means the Great Cocktail Challenge is back. We met up with the Exeter Area Chamber of Commerce to learn more.
Hi, it's Samantha with Exeter Area Chamber of Commerce, here to tell you today about the 2025 Cocktail and Mocktail Challenge. My friend Jaime Lopez, innkeeper at the Inn by the Bandstand, will be making the minty air drink for you today, which he featured last year in the competition. Starting July 18th through the 27th, you'll be able to visit participating restaurants in the Seacoast area. The Great Cocktail and Mocktail Challenge was created to find out who makes the best signature drink in the Seacoast area. Your favorite mixologist will be able to sell their signature cocktails, and you'll be able to vote online. From July 18th through the 27th, you'll be able to visit participating restaurants, purchase their signature drinks, and vote online. It's as easy as that. We pour, you vote. So that's it. We pour, you vote. Go to exeterarea.org for participating restaurants. We'll see you between July 18th and 27th. Cheers!
And for our last segment, we spent last week at a national conference for community media, where our station won a major award. Here's more on what Exeter TV learned at the conference.
We're the closest people to the facts that are happening in the town, and if we do everything we can to get those facts out, that's almost better than the editorializing journalism that is going to get out there. Because what we're saying, if you have good policies in place and staff and open cultures of communication, you're giving the facts straight to the public rather than filtering it through some news organization that's going to spin it. So that's kind of the question I pose to everybody here, is what could you do in your community to try to do something?
In towns and cities all across the country, there are community media stations just like the one we have at Exeter TV. Each of these communities have their own set of problems and stories to tell that are unique to them. It's community media's job to empower people in their area and tell these stories by providing a platform for town residents to speak, making local government more accessible, providing coverage of town events, and so much more. Last week, community media stations from all over the United States gathered in Boston for the annual Alliance for Community Media Conference. A lot of community media has to operate on a small budget with a small team, so this conference provided an opportunity for all these stations to talk to each other and learn how to better support the needs and demands of their local communities.
If you're a 1 or 2 person shop and you've got those daily deadlines, it's hard to do the research. It's hard to have the extra brain space to be able to be creative, to be able to change and do things better for your community. And I think that's one of the things that's really valuable about getting together for 2.5 days here. We've got people from all around the United States who are doing civic media work, they're doing public information work, they're providing educational work for community members. All very exciting and interesting. Not everyone does everything, but you can find out something about ways you can do your work better at a gathering like this. And that's what we try to achieve.
The conference held a series of lectures and panel discussions about the industry and what different community media stations are doing to empower their citizens. At the Media Educators Circle, educators from all over came together to discuss their curriculums, tips and tricks for working with children, and stories from their experiences in the field.
There's this one kid that was attending, and it was so hard to get him to do literally anything because all he wanted to play was like this Minecraft ripoff on our computers. He was like addicted. And then I see that he signed up for like 2 of our summer camps. And this kid made a 5 to 7 part series. He was on a roll. He didn't want to stop. He learned how to use Blender, which I don't know how to use. And he was joking with me. It's like, you don't know how to do this, so I'll show you. I'm like, okay. But just seeing the smile on his face, showing his parents what he made was just, it was just amazing.
At a panel about local sports coverage, panelists talked about how they use sports to bring people together and build community.
Sports is like religion. We really resonate around it. People are engaged in it heavily. They believe that it's part of the family experience. It's also part of the school experience. It's part of the school community. Anything like that is community building. And so to that end, there's a certain amount of sort of energy and vibrancy around it. It's really an opportunity to demonstrate how we come together as a community.
At an early screening of a documentary, the community media team in Burlington, Vermont played a film showcasing the station's 40-year history of serving their community.
All right, can I get you anything before we start? Water, do you need?
So you're interested in working here at Town Meeting TV, CCTV?
All right, and do you mind if I record?
The event culminated on Wednesday night with the annual Hometown Media Awards. For these awards, nearly 1,000 entries are submitted from stations all across the country. A panel of judges from the industry select the winners, honoring and recognizing the stations that are serving their community. The state of New Hampshire was well represented, with the team at Merrimack TV picking up an award for their Merrimack Moment series. Bedford also took the stage and accepted 2 different awards for their work in radio. At the end of the evening, the show went on to announce the stations winning awards for overall excellence.
Do you want to just like sit down next to the camera as if, yeah.
In the category of overall excellence, PE or G access, less than $300,000, the hometown goes to Bob Glowacki, Dan Monchek, Will Tapley, and Gabe Perez from Exeter TV for the project titled Overall Excellence for Exeter TV.
So I think our award shows that we love to lean into our employees' creativity here and just lean into our community stories and the great work that our town staff are doing, which we love showcasing. We're doing really important work here in Exeter, and my colleagues in other states are doing important work across the country. Community media plays such a vital role in bringing communities together, keeping residents informed, and just being a platform for the public to share their voice.
That does it for this week's report. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to help us spread the word. Head over to the town website and subscribe to the town email newsletter to get this show and other local news sent straight to your inbox. We'll be back on July 18th for the next edition of the show. For Exeter TV, I'm Dan Monchek, and this has been the Exeter Biweekly Report. Have a great weekend, Exeter.
Oh.
I had a pine cone.